Hello, everyone. Just to start out going over your homework from last week, let me know who you explained lactic acid buildup, DOMS, and rhabdo to, and let me know if that person was surprised about it. I don't know if you saw on the Facebook page, um, and I will actually tag a couple of you in it so you can explain it. I did a poll of who thought lactic acid buildup was responsible for muscle soreness, and the majority of people actually thought that. So even though that we've really never thought as a scientific community that lactic acid was responsible for muscle soreness, that's still a common misconception. So I want to show you guys, even though it has never been considered true, people still think that because it's said all the time. Coaches will say it. I hear it all the time. So I'm going to tag a couple of you guys in the Facebook post if you'd like to jump in and explain. This could even be a part of your homework to explain lactic acid buildup, DOMS and rhabdo. So a lot of people will be surprised about the true cause of muscle soreness. Now for this week, we are going to talk about sleep and stress. This will be important, especially coming up on the end of summer, going into the new school year. We're going to talk about getting plenty of sleep, what's going to disrupt your sleep, nutrients that can help you sleep, and the same thing for stress. What is stress? Why it's bad? What can help lower your stress levels? Now, sleep, there can be tons of different reasons that interrupt your sleep. Could be stress. Could be using electronics before bed. That blue light makes it very difficult for you to fall asleep. Really just turns on your brain, especially if you're using it within 2 hours before bed. And on a lot of phones now, they do have a blue light blocker that you're supposed to use before you go to bed. It might help, it might not. It really doesn't block all of the blue light, it just blocks some of it. So blue light really makes the difference with that one. Temperature, most people sleep better in the cooler temperatures instead of hot, and with the nasty, horrible hot temperatures that it is outside right now, it can make it very difficult for you to sleep, especially stay asleep. You may be able to fall asleep, but staying asleep can be harder. Anxiety, especially having to do with dreams, can keep you awake. If your brain's just running on high alert the whole time, and while you're trying to get to sleep, you're not going to be able to get very good sleep. And a regular sleep schedule, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, why a sleep schedule is important and why a bedtime routine can really help you fall and stay asleep. Using caffeine before bed, and it doesn't even have to be right before bed. Some people have a cutoff time of 1 o'clock. They can't use caffeine. And there are a certain number of people, about 40-ish%, that caffeine doesn't act as a stimulant for them. It affects their body in other ways. That doesn't apply to you, but you really have to know your body, and that's part of the reason we use the food journal, so you know your body and you see how caffeine affects you, so that you can see, oh, if I have anything with caffeine after this time, I have the hardest time falling asleep. That way you can notice those things and adjust them so that you can feel better. Illness and allergies is a big one, because who's going to fall asleep easily with the stuffy nose? An uncomfortable bed. For some reason, that ends up being, anytime I do this for my adult classes, it ends up just being an aha moment for a lot of people, even though it should, in theory, be an obvious one. If your bed is uncomfortable, you're probably not going to sleep well. And they even say to replace your bed every 8 years. That's partly because the materials start to break down, and they're not going to support your back and your body as well as they should. And partly because your bed really attracts a whole bunch of allergens into it. So you're sleeping on sweat and old skin, and if you have pets hair and pet dander, your own dander. So there's a whole lot of stuff in your beds. You are supposed to replace it every 8 or so years for that reason. Medications can keep you awake, even the ones that are supposed to help you sleep. Mostly the ones that have alcohol in them, which will be a lot of cough medicines and cold medicines. They may help you get asleep, but they do not help you stay asleep, and you won't get a restful night's sleep. And then dreams, good or bad, they can help keep you awake. Now, there are some nutrients that help you sleep. Fiber is a big one, because anything low glycemic index is going to help you to fall asleep. That's why you should have your vegetables before bed, and anything with a high glycemic index is going to make it harder for you to fall asleep or stay asleep. Tryptophan, you would normally see it in turkey, but any lean protein has tryptophan in it. And that'll help you fall asleep. That's why people will talk about a post-Thanksgiving meal crash because of the tryptophan. Tryptophan helps you make melatonin. It's a sleep hormone. And really that helps you get and stay asleep. It helps you regulate your sleep schedule, or get your sleep cycle on track. So melatonin is important because you start forming it about 2 hours before you go to bed. And this can be a huge mistake when people try to take melatonin to fall and stay asleep. So if you're taking melatonin, you have to have a regular sleep cycle already, because if you don't, you can't take it 2 hours before you go to bed because you don't have a regular bedtime. If you try to take it without really knowing when you're going to go to sleep and not setting up your body to have a regular sleep cycle, your body is going to stop making melatonin because you're already giving it to it and it doesn't think it needs to make it anymore. To take melatonin is really just to speed up your body's adaptation to the sleep cycle, or if you're not making enough melatonin to begin with. But instead of taking it, there are other things you can do, making sure you're getting plenty of sleep, making sure you're getting plenty of foods with tryptophan, like lean protein. Calcium will help you convert tryptophan to melatonin, and making sure you have a good sleep cycle, because that's what melatonin is supposed to do, regulate your sleep cycle, make sure you're on track to sleep regularly. Magnesium helps you, it's a relaxing one, so it helps you to stay asleep. When your magnesium levels are low, you're going to have a really hard time. You may get to sleep, but you'll have a hard time staying asleep. And that could be one, if you're waking up consistently tired in the morning, that may be something to look for. You may want to take something with magnesium or get plenty of nuts. Walnuts actually have a lot of tryptophan and melatonin, walnuts have tryptophan and melatonin. Almonds have a lot of magnesium. So if you are waking up really tired, you may want to watch it. You may not necessarily know you're waking up in the middle of the night. You may not necessarily know you're not sleeping soundly. You may be waking up consistently, but falling back asleep before you realize you're awake. That may just mean that you have low magnesium and you may need to supplement it. Calcium, we already talked about converting tryptophan to melatonin. Lactocariums in lettuce, it's actually a sedative. And you need lots of vitamin B6 to make melatonin and serotonin. Both of those are happy, sleepy hormones. So if you don't have enough of it, you're not going to make those hormones. Hormones help your body do the things that's supposed to do. Now, what are the things that don't help you sleep? Caffeine is an obvious one. If you are sensitive to caffeine, don't have caffeine anytime before bed. Alcohol is actually one that surprises people. Alcohol, you may fall asleep, but it's going to disrupt your sleep cycle so you don't stay asleep. Even if you don't necessarily realize, kind of along the same lines as making sure that you have plenty of magnesium, alcohol depletes your magnesium. So part of the reason it may wake you up is because it's depleting your magnesium, but it also disrupts your REM cycle. So you may not be getting restful sleep. You may be asleep, but it's disrupting it so you're not getting restful sleep. The fluids, I put it on here, but it's one of those should be obvious ones. If you are having plenty of fluids before bed and you are waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you're probably not getting restful sleep. Tyramine is actually in fermented foods, and it's a stimulant. So if you notice that you're having trouble going to sleep and you can't figure out why, and you're having kombucha or kimchi or sauerkraut or something, some other fermented foods before bed, that may be keeping you awake. Spicy foods, they also kind of act as a stimulant for your digestive system. Your digestive system needs to sleep too. So if it's running full force, which it will if you had spicy foods, then you're not going to sleep very well because your body's still trying to run your digestive system, which it can't do if you're sleeping. And then food sensitivities, those will just keep you awake because you're uncomfortable. Now, there are a whole bunch of herbal remedies for sleep. My personal favorite is an adaptogen. It's my personal favorite because of the name. It's ashwagandha. That helps you to decrease anxiety, and it's a sedative. So if you have a lot of issues with thinking about way too much before bed, ashwagandha may help with that. Catnip, it does the opposite for us as it does for cats. It helps you sleep. Sometimes it's used for colicky babies to help them finally get a nap. And insomnia and anxiety too. It actually works the same way in us as it does in dogs. Sometimes before dog shots or before they get their nails trimmed, they'll give them catnip. Chamomile is a very mild sedative. It increases glycine, so we need it to sedate us just a little bit sometimes. It actually works better if you increase your insulin levels, because it helps you get tryptophan to the brain more easily. So if you mix chamomile and honey before bed, it's actually going to work better. Cramp bark, lemon balm, skullcap, and wild yam are all sedatives, and they decrease anxiety. Hops, which you would normally find in beer, can be combined with valerian root to help improve sleep quality. So that may help you stay asleep and sleep deeper. It actually works very similar to sedatives that you would get from your doctor. And that can be a hard one because people will automatically go to beer. It has to be non-fermented hops, because once they're fermented, you have to deal with the alcohol part of it. Not only do you have to deal with the alcohol, you have to deal with the fermentation process. So it's kind of a double whammy against the hops to try to get you to sleep. So you have to take them separately. Lavender is an easy one. It's in everything to make you relax. A lot of times you'll use the oils just because they're so potent. So you can put them on your pillow or in your mattress. You can have them in a lotion to put on your feet, as long as it's real lavender and not the lavender scent. Passion flower actually acts on your nervous system to make you tired, and it helps you feel more refreshed when you wake up, so it's improving your sleep quality. Saffron is a spice. It's very expensive, but it can help with your restlessness, and it's another sedative. That one, the cost of the herb may negate the actual benefits. Schisandra is another adaptogen, and we'll talk about adaptogens again in a little bit. We'll really go into what they are. That treats anxiety and disruptive dreams. So if you are having dreams that are constantly waking you up because your brain is on overdrive, Schisandra can help. St. John's wort can increase melatonin. That is one to pay attention to because there are a lot of contraindications for any of the, especially St. John's root and valerian root, or St. John's wort and valerian root for other medications that you could possibly be taking. Valerian helps reduce the time it takes for you to get to sleep and improves your sleep quality. Now, with any of these, you need to, number one, when we talked about herbal remedies a little while ago, I wanted to address again how important it is to take these very seriously. You can't just, like we talked about for the melatonin before, it can become habit forming, and you can stop creating your own melatonin because you're taking melatonin to try to fall asleep. That's similar with any of these. They work a lot like medications that you would get over the counter or as a prescription. Some of them are, the composition of them are very similar to prescriptions. St. John's wort is very similar to some antidepressants. So that you have to be very, very, very careful with the dosage of these, the quality of what you're getting, what you're taking them with, because there are certain foods you can't take them with, and when you're taking them. So with all of these, if you're going to take them, you need to talk to somebody who, like an herbalist or somebody along that lines, who knows how to dose all of these. And there are some that, if you are of the younger ages, like you guys are, you can't take them. St. John's wort and valerian are ones that you really, really need to watch because they are very potent. They're very effective for what they do, but the dosage on them hasn't really been decided for anybody who is not an adult. There are ones like chamomile, lavender, lemon balm, ashwagandha, schisandra. Those ones you really can't go wrong with, but because it takes an awful lot of them to do any real damage. You still need to watch the quality of them, where you're getting them from, because you don't know what else, because herbal remedies are unregulated. You don't know where they're coming from, and you don't know what else has been put in them. So just another disclaimer about herbal remedies. I talked a little bit about it before, but I want to address it again just to make sure that you remember. As much as I love herbal remedies and using them for especially sleep and stress, you do need to pay attention to a lot of things when you're taking them. Now, what can you do other than the herbal remedies to help you sleep better? First, you actually have to give yourself an opportunity to sleep. You can't go to bed you can't be trying to get into bed after you've had a crazy day with only 6 hours to get to sleep and up until your alarm goes off. That's not giving yourself an opportunity to get a restful sleep. You also need to set your day up for a restful night. Really watching your food journal, not having spicy food before bed, not having any of those foods that are going to keep you up, watching the caffeine. And if you have a lot of trouble with exercise keeping you awake, don't exercise before bed. So you're setting your whole day up so that you can get a good night's sleep, especially if you're having trouble sleeping anyway. Eating your vegetables for dinner, making sure you get plenty of good fibrous vegetables, because the fiber is going to help you fall asleep faster. Kind of like setting your day up for the rest of the night, making sure, again, exercise. If exercise keeps you awake, do not exercise before bed. If exercise knocks you out, it's a great time to exercise. And the type of exercise may make a difference too. Strength training, if you're doing more of a light strength training, that'll probably keep you awake. If you're doing something like a more restful yoga, that may help you sleep. So finding the best exercise at the best times can really help your sleep schedule if you're having trouble. Bedtime routines, very, very important. If you have a regular bedtime routine, the melatonin is going to be introduced in your body at the correct time. Your body's going to know when it needs to start getting ready to sleep. It's not like your body just, oop, I'm done now. You're not a robot. You don't have a switch. You can't just pass out. You need to give your body the opportunity to find its own cycle and get restful sleep, and that's part of the bedtime routine. That's why they have babies go on a strict bedtime routine every night, same time, so that they can sleep. Because if you keep them up too long, they'll have trouble sleeping. If you try to put them to bed too early, they'll also have trouble sleeping. They'll have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. So getting yourself on a bedtime routine is the number one biggest thing that will help you to fall asleep on a regular basis. And then keeping your food journal is just so you know how everything's affecting you. So if you see something that is affecting your sleep, you can change it. And you're more likely to see it if you write it down and keep track of it. Now, stress. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens in stress. For short-term stress, what would short-term stress be? We don't have quite as much of it anymore. If you are playing a sport, that's short-term stress. If you are running away from something, like, let's say, back in the day when you were running away from a tiger because you were about to get eaten, that is short-term stress. Your adrenal medulla releases epinephrine. And epinephrine is the excitatory hormone. It puts glycogen into your liver and muscles, like we talked about last week, so that you have energy. It raises your blood pressure and your breathing rate so that you can get oxygen and nutrients where you need to go. Increases your metabolic rate, so everything's on high alert and being used how it's supposed to. It makes you more alert, so getting that blood to your brain, and then decreases the digestion, getting the blood away from those digestive muscles. Because at that point, when you're running away from a tiger, you don't need them. Now, with short-term stress, this happens in a very short period of time, and then it's over, and your body can relax, and you're done. Now, long-term stress can be really damaging because your adrenal cortex releases mineralocorticoids. Those help make you retain sodium and water in your kidneys, which increases your blood pressure. Now, The adrenal cortex also releases glucocorticoids, which they create energy from broken down proteins and fats. We talked about them a little bit last week, but I kind of brushed over the specifics of it so we could talk about it this week. And it suppresses your immune system. Why is that a bad thing? The increased blood pressure and suppressed immune system. It is setting you up to get sick. Your body is not made to do that long term. But suppressing your immune system, that's okay for a little bit because you're just trying to deal with some short-term thing you're running away from a tiger for half an hour. Either you're going to get away from it or you're going to get eaten. For long-term stress, that's what we deal with now. That's what you're dealing with schoolwork and sports and dealing with your family, anything else you could be dealing with on a regular basis. That's long-term stress. We put a lot of stress on ourselves. Now for that, with the increased blood pressure, that's going to put more pressure on our arteries, makes it easier to break, puts more pressure on our brain. Not something we want to do. Suppressing the immune system just makes it so you can get sick easier. So with that, we don't want the long-term stress. Short-term stress, not a big deal. Your body's made to do this. It's basic stress response. Really easy for your body to deal with and then rest afterwards to reboot. Your body is not made to deal with this. Now, how do you know when you're overstressed? Sugar cravings are a huge tell. If you're not hungry in the morning, caffeine use, and that's more excessive caffeine use to keep you functioning. If you are really feeling like you're dragging, then you could be overstressed. That's not just that you're tired, it's that you're putting too much pressure on your body. Low blood sugar, not being able to concentrate, and that fatigue is going to be a big one that we need to watch out for. You're not sleeping well. That's part of the reason we put it together. Sleep and stress tend to go hand in hand. You're struggling with motivation and ambition. You're confused. Nausea can be a big symptom of being overstressed. You're not recovering from your illnesses as easily because your immune system is down. You have a very short fuse and tend to snap at people. Your parents will be the first ones to tell you about this. So ask them, do I seem to have a short fuse? You might be overstressed. Increased inflammation, and that's going to be an immune response as well. And that's going to be, you may not necessarily see it as easily. If you get hurt, you'll be able to see it, but inflammation can be inside too, or more internal so that you can't really see them. It may not just be, oh, I hurt my wrist and it's swollen. It could be with inflammation can cause a lot of issues with your heart as well. Joint pain and anxiety are also symptoms of stress. Now, there are a lot of health issues that can come from this because your body is just at a deficit all the time. Anxiety, autoimmune diseases can theoretically be exacerbated from stress. Neck pain and back pain from joint issues. Cardiovascular disease from the inflammation. Decreased immunity, getting sick more often because your immune system's down. Diabetes, because your blood sugar is just going haywire. You're craving more sugar and then it's just dropping. High blood pressure, headaches from high blood pressure. Insomnia, IBS, can cause issues with your digestive system. Like we said, with stress, your digestive system is going to decrease function. If it's not working well, then it's not going to digest the food as well. You're also not going to get the nutrients that you need because your digestive system is not working the way it's supposed to. Your thyroid is not going to work as well because it's trying to pump out hormones, and then at some point it just gives up and can't really keep up with all the hormones that it needs to be producing. Metabolic syndrome is going to be a lot of these mixed together. It's going to be the heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, or type 2 diabetes. Migraines, osteoporosis, psoriasis is another autoimmune disease, tense muscles, all this yucky stuff can come from stress. Burnout is what you really need to pay attention to. Burnout, when we talked about your adrenal glands, those are the ones that produce the stress response. Those can get really tired out too. They're only made to do things for a short period of time. Now, when they get tired out, you're really going to see this issue. Burnout is the pinnacle of all stress. That's what you really need to pay attention to, because that's when you see yourself getting to the point of no return and it really becomes an issue. So I'm going to go through these individually because I want you to be able to pay attention to these, especially when you start going back into school. The compulsion to prove yourself is, most of the time that's the starting one, but these can come in any order. And the compulsion to prove yourself is trying to do better than everybody else to the detriment of yourself. So when I say the next one, working harder, it's working harder to the detriment of yourself. So you are studying to the point that you're not getting enough sleep. You are exercising to the point that your body is exhausted and your joints are hurting. That's the compulsion to prove yourself. And it gets to the point of neglecting your needs. You're not getting enough sleep. You're not taking care of your body. You're not eating well. Displacement of conflicts. You're putting your issues on something else. So maybe you studied, you're not getting enough sleep, but you're fighting more with your parents or your siblings. That'll be your displacement of conflicts. And that'll go more into revision of values too. You're doing things that you wouldn't have necessarily have done before. This is where your parents will probably start getting or butting in, because this is where it really starts becoming an issue. Once you start doing things that you really wouldn't have done before, that's where burnout starts to really become a problem and really become apparent to everybody else. You may start to notice it, but other people are probably going to notice it first. Denial of emerging problems will be your next big one. Is people will start coming to you and telling you that maybe something's wrong, and you will deny it and you will tell them they are wrong. And then you'll start pulling back, and you'll start staying away from these people, spending a lot of time by yourself. Behavior changes, depersonalization, so you're becoming less of yourself. Inner emptiness, depression, and burnout syndrome are the really bad portions. That's when you really need to watch your stress, because at the point of burnout syndrome, you are done. There's very little left of you. So people will hit that a lot in college to start out with, because you're being shoved into an experience that you're not used to, and that it's a lot at once. So burnout syndrome is something that early college students really need to pay attention to, because once you hit that point of no return, it's very hard to get yourself back to normal. So once people start talking to you about burnout syndrome, that's when you need to pay attention to it. Now, for stress, you can't avoid stress. It is everywhere, and you really don't have a choice for a lot of it. You're going to hit a point that you are going to be stressed, even if you aren't necessarily right now. There are things you can do to help decrease your stress. You can avoid high glycemic foods. Sugar is going to make your life more difficult with stress. And it's also going to be more taxing on the organs that control your stress. Avoiding stimulants, caffeine, things that hype you up, that's going to contribute to overstress. And it's going to cause more anxiety. So avoiding those can help a lot, even if you feel like you need them. And once you start feeling like you need them, what's that a symptom of? Stress and burnout. There are a lot of nutrients that can help you too. Vitamin B5 helps your adrenal glands, so those are the ones that help control stress. It boosts them in the way of not necessarily in the way that stress boosts them. It'll help them function better and help regulate them, not help them work harder. B1 and B5 help you produce energy. Vitamins don't produce energy by themselves, but they help convert your macronutrients into energy, and neurotransmitters. So it also helps your brain work better. Magnesium calms you, helps you sleep, and works your digestive system. So we talked about your digestive system not working as well while you're stressed. Magnesium will help. Vitamin C actually helps you reduce the stress hormone, and antioxidants help avoid the damage that stress causes. So the free radical damage, the inflammation, the antioxidants from fruits, vegetables, phytonutrients will help avoid that. And exercise also helps a lot with stress. I know you guys are fantastic at exercising, but you need to keep it up even if you are stressed. And then adaptogens we're going to talk about too. And we talked about them a little bit to start out with. But adaptogenic herbs, there's a very, very specific criteria for them. They have to be safe and normalize body functions irrespective of the nature of the stressors. And all that means is adaptogens can't go above and beyond like a lot of medications will. So you can overdo a medication and it will take you, let's do digestive system because that's an easy one. If you take a laxative, you can way overdo that laxative and it'll take you completely to the other side into diarrhea land. Adaptogens can't do that. They get you to the point of regular body systems and they really help you regulate, but they don't overdo. And they're safe for all ages. That's the big criteria. That's why there's only 20. There are a lot of things that almost fit into being an adaptogen, but not quite. And the big common ones that we're going to talk about for stress are ginseng. And there are different types of ginseng. Most ginseng you're going to see is going to be Siberian ginseng if it's cheap. So if it's in drinks or in certain foods, ginseng's been a popular one. Most of the time it's going to be Siberian ginseng, and that's important because they're two very different things. Panax ginseng, and that'll be the one, if they specify, then that's going to be regular ginseng if they specify as Panax ginseng. That's going to help your memory. It also helps protect your brain, boost your immune system. It helps your heart and helps get the blood and the nutrients where they need to go, and it helps regulate your blood sugar. So most of the time that's going to be in more expensive energy drinks or things that are supposed to help your memory. Siberian ginseng is very, very different. Technically, it's not a ginseng at all, and it's very, very different. It's a stimulant. It helps regulate the immune system, and it helps protect you from cancer. Rhodiola is another one. It's antibacterial, antidepressant, helps decrease fatigue. So that's a big, big, big symptom of stress. Antiviral, antioxidant. We talked about how if you are overly stressed, your immune system is going to be down. So rhodiola can help fight anything that is coming to get you while your immune system is down, while you're building it back up. Because it also helps decrease your anxiety and it protects your brain as well. Ashwagandha is obviously my favorite one. It actually means horse in some type of Indian language that is completely escaping me right now. But we want to use ashwagandha instead because that's definitely a better word. It's another sedative. We already talked about it's anti-inflammatory, it helps boost your immune system. It's anti-anemic, which can be very important if you're low iron, because it helps regulate your iron function. It helps make it so that you're not wasting the iron that you're eating. Helps regulate your thyroid hormone, which we talked about, stress wreaking havoc on your thyroid, because at some point it eventually gives up during long-term stress. And it helps lower cholesterol, which we talked about for metabolic syndrome, can be another symptom of stress once you're in it for a very long time. Now, just to go back a little bit to sleep, Schisandra was another adaptogenic herb. All right. Now, to get your questions for this week, and just as a reminder, again, if you didn't notice, all of the questions for the midterm were the check yourself questions at the end of each of the PowerPoints. So pay attention to them. They're important. For this week, which kind of light makes it hard for you to sleep? Give you a hint, it's a color. And it's not red. And it's not green. So it's probably blue. Blue light makes it hard for you to sleep. How long should you avoid electronics, which are blue light, before bed? About 2 hours. 2 hours definitely gives you that plenty of time to, as much as I can't stand this word, detox from the blue light. What is one nutrient to help you sleep? And for that one, I'm actually going to go back slides. So you have a choice of fiber, tryptophan, melatonin, magnesium, calcium, lactocarium, or vitamin B6. You can use any of them, or if you come up with your own, you might even get extra credit on the final. And then the next question, what's a nutrient that keeps you awake? Caffeine, alcohol, fluids, tyramine, spicy foods, and food sensitivities. If you come up with another one, you might get extra credit on the final for that one too. Where does the short-term stress response come from? So your adrenal medulla is responsible for short-term stress. The adrenal cortex is responsible for long-term stress. For the most part, that's a little simplistic, but for the sake of our test, that's what we're going to talk about. And what is a negative response to long-term stress? You can use pretty much anything. You can use personal issues with stress. You can use anything from this list. Decreased concentration, confusion, nausea, struggling with your immune response. You can use any of the health issues for long-term stress. Any of those I will absolutely take. And then what is an adaptogen? If you go through and give me the full definition, you will definitely get extra credit on the exam. But I will also take the quote from the father of adaptogens, that there must be safe and normalized body functions irrespective of the nature of the stressors. And your homework for this week is to create a bedtime routine and track it. So use that as part of your food journal and see if you sleep better with some consistency. You may need a little bit more than a week to really get through the bedtime routine, but I want to know what it is too. So you'll send me an email with your bedtime routine, partly so I can keep up with you and ask you if you did it. And then I want to see it tracked. And that is everything for this week. Thank you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. And make sure you're tracking your bedtime routine. And if you haven't already watched last week and checked in with somebody who you need to explain lactic acid, DOMS, and rhabdo to, go ahead and I will also tag you guys on the Facebook page so that you can explain it to a bunch of strangers if you'd like. Have a great week. If you can make it on Thursday for Annette's class, she would really enjoy having all of you there, and I will see you guys next week.